Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's Plymouth Science Park Together webinar. It's the third in our series, and I'm really pleased to be able to introduce today Dave Smith from Acronyms, Managing Director. He's founded the company in 2003. They've been at the Science Park for a glorious 10 years now, and we're delighted to have them on board with us. Acronyms specialise in sort of all things relating to IT infrastructure. Dave will tell you a lot more, but they are sort of absolute leaders in the field and are going from strength to strength. So without further ado, I can hand you over to Dave. Please remember, if you've got any questions while the talk's going, just use the chat function at the bottom of your screen and send us questions, and we'll cover those right at the end of the talk. So thanks very much, Dave. We'll sit back and enjoy your presentation now.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Faye. Hi, I'm Dave Smith, Managing Director of Acronyms Limited. We've been running since 2003 down in the southwest, but we now operate across the UK. We are involved with a lot of southwest-based organisations, but we're also involved with some large utility companies across the country. Including some critical national infrastructure projects, which have been quite interesting to work on, together with the team that we've got down at the Science Park. The main headquarters is in the Science Park at the moment, but we've recently expanded into Bristol. The Science Park, we have several offices within the Science Park, but we also make good use of the data centre facilities, which many of you may have seen over in phase 4. So big shout out for them. Through the years since 2003, we've seen some dramatic changes in technology that people can utilize in order to make working life a lot easier. A lot of them with regards to remote working, which is obviously the major topic of the day and of COVID, where everybody's been urged to stay at home for the sake of the NHS and for the country. Okay, so we're just going to run through some objectives. Ensuring your business survives the next disaster. Well, a disaster could be, as we're seeing at the moment, a nationwide pandemic, a worldwide pandemic. But it could be as small as an office, a flood, an outage within your own office, where you can't actually get to the office and all the work needs to be done remotely. Through some several examples of the past few years, the 2007 London bombings, where London basically shut down, the majority of London shut down for several days. There was a large office fire in Birmingham, 2019. Again, multi-occupancy office block that was shut down for a fire in one of the basement warehouses that was in the vicinity. That shut the lot down. Floods are a major concern, obviously across Somerset and up towards the Midlands, etc. But even a break-in or something along those lines, the disaster recovery side comes into play there. The chances that people will have to work out of the office are quite large, but I think now that it's had to be done and we've been forced to do it, I think people will accept it on a much better scale than what they would previously. Okay, so what should you be thinking about? What should you be doing? There's some argument of being you need to be self-critical. You need to look at how you work and whether your staff can work from home. There are various industries where, should we say, like mechanics working in a garage, etc. That's not really going to be feasible. But the majority of service operations, service businesses can be run from home. The big emphasis there is making sure that you're prepared and that you're expecting to be working from home at some point and remote working. Acronyms, we're very lucky because Most of the engineers are out on site a lot. We all accept, we use good technology in order to access the data in the office, but also we have a lot of cloud services. So a lot of our systems are cloud managed, either in the Science Park's data center or within Azure, AWS, and various other cloud suppliers on that side. Making sure that everybody's it's not a surprise to anybody. We've been through a lot of situations in the past couple of weeks where it's the first time people have worked from home, and it's quite a shock to them. It's just like I'd say working from home, or the remote working is pretty much like a fire drill. If you do it for the first time, is where do I go? What do I need to do? Where should I be mustering? Am I in the right place? But the second time you do it, you've answered all those questions, and it's just nature, just to carry on, and then just move on out to home. Switch on the laptop or the desktop or whatever method you're using in order to access the system back in the office. So if you practice it once, maybe twice, then it's second nature, and therefore they shouldn't really have any problems from that side. The way that Acronyms did it this time, we had a snow policy from 2018 from the Beast from the East, where we dispersed our staff home. We had a couple of shortcomings at that point, which we covered off when we came back, and we produced a snow working policy. Very rare to get snow in Plymouth, but as we did in 2018, we did. We basically, for the CV19, we adapted that snow policy. We informed the staff late January, early February that things were getting a little bit more serious, and we were looking at making sure that everybody could work from home. Everybody was able to get out to test their comms, etc. So we had several days where we'd send a third of the staff home for around about 2 p.m. They then came online, tested the phones, tested their access to all the systems, and it gave the management confidence that when the time came ready to shut the office and move everybody out, we were prepared, and the staff were prepared as well. Luckily, suppliers didn't really matter from our point of view. We have got a couple of people in the office taking deliveries and making sure that they get shipped out to people. Yeah, so that worked really well for us, and it was just that being able to be prepared and making sure that it's not a shock to anybody. People like your accounts department probably never really work from home. That was our biggest challenge, getting, should we say, the non-technical people the ability to get online, get the phone system, and grow some confidence with the systems that we utilize. Access to data is a major issue and a potential security flaw for a lot of companies. We ourselves use Azure, Microsoft Azure. We also use on-site data services, Microsoft SharePoint. Our remote management system is within the data center, so that's all nice and safe. And all our phone systems are all private cloud-based, as in the data center, but accessible from all locations. And many of our clients are as well. So luckily for them, they did a quick lift and shift, and they got home, plugged their phones in, and they all worked. Their extensions were there, their laptops were there. The security angle is quite an interesting one, depending on what technology you use to access your files and systems. You potentially do open yourself to some security vulnerabilities where you wouldn't normally do. Things like people using their home PCs to connect over a VPN circuit, which then gives them full access to the systems, but also potentially systems that you don't manage, i.e. the home PC. You don't know if the kids have been on there downloading files, putting some games on there. So that's a critical point, is making sure your staff have enough equipment that you control, that you can see, and that you can manage, BYOD, your policy should be in place to make sure that they're up to date on their virus scanning and their malware protection, etc. You can have issues with third-party applications only being accessible from your office, which may need a little bit more setting up. But people like ourselves can identify that and make sure that you've routing your traffic through your office, which leads us on to the links that people have from their office out to the internet. A lot of people using fiber, BT fiber, Virgin fiber, etc., which have a really good download speed, which is great when you're in the office, but not such a good upload speed. So when you're trying to send files, or if you're out of the office and try to download files, you will be impacted. So that's a serious consideration. Things like the lease lines that are available that are a very reasonable price now give you the same up and down speed, and it's your own private circuit. For the larger organisations that have struggled, we're pushing them towards the lease line is the better option in case any of this happens again, which from what we're being told could well be in the not too distant future on that side. Various financial packages we've also seen that haven't worked very well. A common known one is Sage. It just doesn't work remotely. You've got to provide terminal services or remote web gateway into your office so that your staff can work, and those are recognised good, secure methods of access into your office. Comms, phone systems. Phone systems are everyone's moving towards the VoIP scenario with ISDN being shut down in the next couple of years. A lot of people are moving towards VoIP. VoIP systems, if they're set up correctly, will allow you basically to take your handset home, plug it into your network router at home, or if it's wireless capable, connect it to your wireless, and therefore your extension that was on your desk is now at home, which means you've got a seamless, quick transition for the ability to work from home, for people to work from home without the excuses or the reasons that they're trying to get things working, or and therefore providing downtime. Because ultimately, you know, the more uptime you've got, the better from that side of things. Communication is moving towards VoIP for phone calls, but also towards Microsoft Teams, Zoom, as we're on now. They are becoming the norm. People are now actually seeing what they can do with them. We are expecting more of a take-up in this type of communication, not necessarily from disaster, but also from the remote work when you need to speak to a client on a video conference up in, should we say, in the Midlands, when you're down in the Southwest or up in London. You know, you can save yourself probably 6 hours on a train to use these types of comms. And the more people get used to it, the better that they will run with this type of solution. And more people are becoming pretty much, it's becoming the norm. So on a summary, acknowledge that disasters are going to happen and will happen. As I say, things like the 2007 bombings, the flu pandemic. I'm surprised how many pandemics there have been across the world in the last century. I didn't realize there were that many. Review your existing exposure. Review how you do push the buttons to say first wave, go home, get the first wave working, then move to the second wave, and then move to the third wave, so that you can confidently keep the business running while you transition to people working from home. It could be done over hours, it could be done over a couple of days. Remote access, testing remote access, just like you test your backup facilities, make sure you can back up. We get people to test the remote access, and like we did in February, send people home, get them to test it, build their confidence in it, which will allow them to work much, much better. And also allow them to gain confidence that they can actually operate functionally from home without any major issues. And look at the different ways of communication. As we said, Microsoft Teams, Microsoft SharePoint, Zoom, and there are other platforms that are out there, but those are the big ones that seem to be allowing people to stay in touch at the moment. We've seen lots of Zoom parties, etc. So the technology, people are getting used to it, and that's a really good thing. And it also allows people to work normally. And sometimes you can't even tell if somebody's working from home or not. So the big one is don't wait till the next disaster to prepare for it. And good old saying, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And do we have any questions?
That was brilliant. Thank you so much, Dave. And I think that lots of people can learn a lot from this. And as you say, that it's surprising how many pandemics and disasters there really are. So we have had some questions come in, so I'll put some of these to you.
Cool.
So one of the questions is, do you find that tech provides enough social and emotional support for your team?
The ability for the guys to do their jobs is definitely there. We have people working remotely that are, you wouldn't know that they are working remotely. The biggest surprise to me was the accounts department. They've done really well. It's the first time that they've ever done this. The emotional support, that's the difficult one. We also have a couple of guys in the office, and they find it easier in the office, even though they're socially distancing. The desks are all separated, but they can ask each other questions from should we say, a team point of view. So when you're working on your own and you're trying to work on a complex problem, you can't just turn to the guy next to you. You've got to initiate a call. That is a little bit more difficult. But again, it comes down to how confident people are to use the technology, and whether you can support your staff using that technology is probably the key point. The more it becomes normal, just like sending an email is normal for everybody now. Take it back 15, 20 years, it was a major thing. But if you make it normal, then the support can be there from management back down to staff.
That's great, thank you. So, do you imagine a time when offices may become obsolete?
If we go back to the last answer of when you're having team collaborations, that's you can do this type of thing over Microsoft Teams or Zoom, but you don't get that immediate meeting capability or that immediate input, or that thought process is potentially a little bit distant. I was listening to a podcast last week on BBC Sounds reference remote working, and there are some big companies in China that have basically disbanded all their offices but are now starting to open them up again. So is it going to take it the whole way? No, I don't believe it ever will. Will it take it to be a hot desk environment like some of the environments we've worked at with the utility companies? Everybody goes in and grabs a hot desk if they're in for a team meeting, then that works really well, and it is something that we do promote, and we're actually changing our attitude to. We have a lot of guys that are out in the field, but we're going to give them more of the option of working from home if they need that little bit of quiet time, but coming in to use a hot desk. So I'd say it's going to go halfway on that one.
Brilliant. And as you mentioned there, lots of your staff do actually normally visit clients on site.
Yeah.
So how are you coping with that at the moment? Have you had to stop this for the time being?
Yeah, client sites. Yeah, you won't get in the pleasure of the Acronyms crew that usually roam around the southwestern UK. We've ceased all site visits unless it's an emergency, where we will go through a procedure with the client to ensure that our staff are safeguarded, as well as they are as well, from us bringing anything in. So it's only emergency scenarios that we're actually dispatching engineers.
Thank you. So you also, in your presentation, you mentioned Microsoft Teams and SharePoint.
Yeah.
How can people access them? Are they free software or do you have to pay for them?
The Microsoft Teams is free for the next year, which is one of Microsoft's initiatives to assist people working from home with the ability to, I guess it's kind of the method of promoting this type of working method. But if you've got Microsoft Office 365, you probably have a Teams license anyway, which allows you to fully utilize all the functionality of video conferencing, text chatting, messaging, and also the unified comms of storing documentation in the back of Teams. It's not just video conferencing. It's not just instant messaging. There's a whole collaborative team working solution, which is why it's called Teams.
Perfect, thank you. And is the cloud and other kind of virtual platforms, are they secure places to put your business's data?
Yeah, this is a question that we go through quite a lot with a lot of clients, depending on the sensitivity of the data and the different vertical that the client's in. The different platforms have different accreditations, but you can also get regional locations where you can insist that your data is put. So should we say Office 365 from a medical point of view and a GDPR point of view, then you're going to want that to be in the UK. You can actually request a Microsoft say, no, I want this to stay in the UK, and they will ring fence it so that it doesn't go outside of the UK. People like Microsoft are fully ISO 27001 accredited with the procedures and the management of your data, which does comply with pretty much all the standards that you can look for. If you go to a third party and use their data center, the accreditation might not be there. And it's the same with various applications that you use online as well. It's always worth asking the question, and all the ones that are worth the salt do have a security page which will list their accreditations, when they expire, and how they go about protecting your data. It's very worth spending a bit of time before you sign up to make sure that they fit your requirements.
That's great. We do actually have quite a lot of questions coming in. So kind of off the back of that one, what virus software do you find is the most used across businesses?
There are several big players in the antivirus and malware protection. Acronyms use a system called WebRoot, which fits into our remote management software. So WebRoot works really well. It's live all the time. It's constantly being updated. But you've also got different players for like ESET, which we do have some clients with ESET out there. Avast, which previously AVG, which were a big player in the time. They've still got quite a market share. Kaspersky, our Russian friends. And then there's McAfee and Symantec as well. So that there's quite a mix out there. And generally, it does depend upon what package you can get. We do see schools get some massive reductions on their antivirus and malware from Sophos. It's pence per machine on an annual basis, and you can't compete against that type of package that's been offered direct to schools, but we're unable to resell stuff like that. So there are lots of different packages, marketplaces, and charities as well also get preferential discounts. So it's always worth asking if you're a charity.
That's brilliant. I think we've got time for kind of one last question there, which is, what's your number one bit of advice for avoiding disruption?
I would say it's familiarity. Is making sure that your staff are used to it, just like, as I said before, like a fire drill. It's very much a case of me. If you've done something once and you repeat it, it becomes familiar. I would say make sure your staff are fully aware of, if you're planning planning to push people home after a certain amount of time, or if it's a case of you're looking for keeping your staff involved, like we did from in early February. We had a chat with everybody. We explained our situation, our thinking, and it wasn't a shock when it was like, right, now we're going to start working from home. Phase 1, go home and get yourselves online. So I would say planning and preparation for those eventualities, and that goes against that. Sorry, that goes with your disaster recovery, your backup, your business continuity, all these different policies. It's great if somebody just writes them, but if they're never checked and they're never tested, you don't want to be checking and testing on the day that it's required.
Excellent. Some really, really good advice there and some helpful resources. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Dave. So we're now going to hand back over to Faye.
Hi guys, thanks very much Dave, I really enjoyed that, and thanks to everyone for joining us. I hope you can make it again next Wednesday morning, and we'll be hearing from Sandra Tilley from Blue Screen IT with all things to be aware of in relation to cyber threats and trends. That should be really fascinating. So please remember to keep sending in your one good thing news stories so that we can keep sharing your successes, however trivial or light-hearted. We'd love to be able to incorporate those into our sort of community messages that we're pushing out while we're not able to actually see each other. So thanks again, see you next week, and thanks to Dave and all involved for today. All right, bye-bye.